Alex Rathgeber. Welcome to the Fem Confessions.
Thank you, Fem Belling.
Tell me something hardly anyone knows.
I was a pretty heavyweight investor as a child. When I was young, I grew up on a farm in country Victoria, just outside of Horsham, and I had saved up some pocket money from washing mum and dad's cars and doing chores around the house and all that sort of stuff on the farm. And I put my money into two little boy calves from the dairy because the boys aren't required at the dairy, and two Poddy Cows.
What did you call them?
Poddy, P-O-D-D-Y, I believe. And don't ask me why they're called Poddy Cows. Someone will know. Listeners, call in. So I bought them for $65 each and raised them on the farm, on mum and dad's farm. I didn't pay any adjustment fees. So I got free feed once they're in the paddock, but also dad forked out for big, huge bags when they were babies, huge bags of powder feed that I mixed together into milk and bottle fed these two little fellas.
So wait, these two Poddy Cows were your babies. You actually bottle fed them.
I bottle fed them and, mixed that powder together, bottle fed them for, it must have been months until they could go out and, eat the grass and eat, find their own food out in the paddocks. And I named them. They were Samson and Angus. And then this is the part that some people might find offensive. And I certainly was completely innocent about this at the time. I then sold them, took them to the what do we call it? The livestock market right in the center of town, this country town market, and sold them to the butcher. I found out later that the butcher bought them.
Right. So you have Angus and Samson, and for 2 years you have reared them. Can you rear a cow? Do you rear a cow?
I suppose.
No, do not rear a cow. At what point do you make the decision to take them to the livestock market?
I suppose, I'm checking in with dad to see if they're ready to sell. I mean, the whole intention was to raise these little guys and then sell them for more money and make some money out of the process. And then the day came along and took them to the market. I had no idea who was going to purchase them or for what purpose. I don't remember inquiring about that, and then after the fact that they were sold, found out where they went, but ran off with my cash,
How did you feel?
I was excited about having made some money off these animals. And I think the difference when you grow up on a farm is that you have this sort of, and I can't speak for everyone, but I certainly remember feeling this sort of attachment and connection to animals at the same time as in harmony with this sort of detachment.
You understand where your food comes from. Every animal has their purpose on the farm, and you see that from an early age to now.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad thing to know that cycle and to be part of that cycle as a kid and see it and understand it, as opposed to just going to the shop and having this faceless meat consumption. I think it's a really cool thing.
I think it's great. I mean, I think a lot of people can't stomach it. People that are against eating animals. But I definitely, you see it in numerous cultures where there's actually that level of appreciation and sort of sacredness about where animals come from. And there is that sort of, that acknowledgement that they are a living being, and we ought to be kind of grateful for this sort of circle of life. So I sold them to the butcher, and then I took that money, and at that time I invested it into the very first ever Telstra float. Telstra went on to the the market, and people could buy shares and invest in the company, and it became a publicly listed company. And I think I still have those shares.
How old were you when you bought these shares?
Oh, about 12. Like, that was my first ever investment journey, and steps toward having an investment portfolio. Hasn't gone much further beyond that.
How much did you make in profit from the time that you bought the cows for 65 each? Do you remember how much?
Well, yeah, I didn't have to discount the feed. So that's, that was pretty lucky. So the figures are probably a little untrue in a way. But, I paid $65 each for them, and then I sold them for $650 each.
Oh,
So I put that $1,300 into the shares, and that's a lot of money for a little kid. I mean, it's kind of a lot of money for a big kid.
totally. I mean, you could have spent it on lollies, but you didn't.
I didn't.
I would love to have your dad weigh in at this point and be like, "Yep, I remember this, and Alex wanted to spend it on." We should find out what you didn't want to spend it on. He probably would have a memory of that. I remember my grandma putting some money on the horses. She lived in Australia, and if she ever won and did really well, she'd send a little bit over, and we got a little bit of money on from the ponies, and I wanted the peaches and cream Barbie.
Peaches and cream.
That's the Barbie I wanted. I wanted the peaches and cream Barbie. And
I think I might have wanted that as well, maybe. The chances are.
No, I'm not going to put my money in the bank account. I want that peaches and cream. And I went and got it. And years of play. I mean, come on.
I remember around the same time, we had a little shed. There was a sort of mezzanine level storage area. And I had these grand visions of converting it into, not just a cubby house, but like a fully occupiable space, like a bedroom, and fitting it out and putting proper plasterboard in there and sealing it off and doing all that. And I wouldn't be surprised if I probably ran it by mum and dad that, well, I can put my money towards the plaster. Those things, because I spent so many weeks, drawing up these plans. Unfortunately, got knocked back about that one, but I just am eternally grateful for my upbringing in, not just on a farm, but in the country. Having just the luxury of space everywhere. You're so physical. We're on push bike, motorbikes, horses, out in our gumboot, jumping on cow pat, helping mum and dad around the farm and throwing out hay for the animals, and it just goes on and on and on.
What was the worst chore on the farm?
Well, there would have been a few. One that comes to mind is we had to drench the sheep, where you spray them with chemicals that fight off bugs and pests and that sort of thing, and from the inside as well. It seeps into their bloodstream, I believe. I'll have some farmers phoning in saying, and that's not exactly right, but from memory, that's what happens. But yeah, we had to also put the little rings on the testicles of the lambs.
Some people do that by choice. That's for another audience. Sorry. For someone who did not grow up on a farm, like I am a city kid, Johannesburg, in the city. When I think of a farm and chores, that is like a whole other life.
Yes. And it feels like that for me too, because my life now is so far removed from that. I can't remember what the chemicals do when you drench a sheep, because I was this little kid, and we moved into town when I was about 13, around that time that I sold sold the boys. So, had a few years living in town before moving to Melbourne, and then, have never had that sort of rural life ever since.
Alex Rathgeber, thank you so much for your openness and honesty in discussing your epic childhood investment portfolio. I think it's such an amazing insight into someone's childhood and the way they grew up to where they are now. I mean, it's such a dichotomy for you. Mowing the lawn, listening to Smurfing USA, selling cows, to producing these extraordinary concerts that you're producing in lockdown during COVID. What other things have you got have you got anything bubbling under there? Are you going to be producing some new things? And if so, where can people find them?
I've got a couple of projects bubbling away, none of which I can speak about. Sounds so cliche, but it's exciting. I'm really excited about two projects at the moment that I can't wait to kind of share, and developing those at the moment. That's really exciting.
This is you with your producer hat on.
Yeah, both actually. One of them is more producer hat, and the other one is producer and performer hat. So yeah, I'm loving being able to do both and explore both. And
incredible. So if you don't know Alex, or if you do know Alex and you want to get in touch, go to alexrathgeber.com. All the information will be down below. I will put it in there for you. But Alex, thank you for coming on the Fem Confessions. And
thanks, Femstar.
We'll circle back around for your investment portfolio tips in a couple of months or so.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll have some more valuable lessons. Thanks so much.